StoriesRoc, and an evening of stories about hot fun in the summertime. And aren't you glad we had a nice hot day so we could all be in the mood for stories about heat with no rain? Okay, our final reader, Mary Finucane. She is a grant writer, and she co-leads the Rochester Veterans Writing Group. She snuggles her 10-year-old whenever permitted, and she conducts research to try to figure out exactly where her family took her on a particular vacation. And you'll hear more about that. A little known fact about Mary, she's the only person I know who will not eat peaches. She hates peach fuzz. Go figure. She will share her story, Allinclusive Resort. Up a little bit. There we go.
The summer of 6th grade, my mother announced to the family that we were going on vacation to a resort. Up until that point, summers had consisted of roaming the neighborhood on bicycles and walking to the public pool at Cobb's Hill, where kids stood in front of a lifeguard, stepped onto a shoebox-sized tray, and were told to stand still. The guard would then hose us down with a power washer and then tell us to turn around so they could do our back. After being cleansed of debris and also our skin, we could enter the pool. All this to slide into a warm square of water packed with kids like sardines. The water level was low enough to ensure that no one drowned, and high enough to ensure that everyone could pee, which is no doubt what happened once the full body numbness of the power wash wore off. The ratio of humans to H2O was 5 to 1. We would climb out, scraping our stomachs against a splintering wooden deck because there was no ladder, slip in, scrape out. The guard would assault us with the hose one last time as we exited just for fun and to see us running away in terror. I don't know why that pool doesn't exist anymore. From the packed pool, we ran into the hot rec center, where boondoggle and cat's cradle were endured. I have never been crafty, and on these days just waited until my suit had dried and my skin was stuck to the metal folding chair. Arising with a suction cup slurp, it was pool time again. Back and forth we alternated between these two activities based more on discomfort than desire. The pool appealed only when sweat began dripping down my back. Boondoggle appealed only after receiving one too many elbows to the head. Even with no experience to compare it to, I understood that there were better pools out there. A resort sounded just right. I asked my mom if this resort had a pool, and she said it did. Does it have a deep end? I asked. Yes, she said, and a diving board. Where is it? My older sister posed this less as a question, more a statement, a suspicious look upon her. And it has horseback riding, my mother went on right over her question. My sister leaned in. Where is it? It's in Steubenville, my mom said. Steubenville. The name sounded exotic. My sister had picked a paint chip and found rot beneath. She picked again. Where is Steubenville? It has a campfire with s'mores, my mom went on. Where? Ohio, my mom answered. I could see the air go out of my mom as my sister confirmed something that I didn't understand. I dreamt that night of swimming and s'mores. I packed clothes that would be worthy of a resort, my best jams with matching jam shirts, scrunchies in a variety of colors, and for the pool as many towels as I could fit in my bag. We piled into our blue van with shag carpet and wood-paneled ceiling, and we began the drive to Ohio. My parents sat in front, and the 5 of us kids sat in back. My older sister suffered then and now with motion sickness, and promptly escaped by leaning a pillow against the window, leaning her head on the pillow, and going to sleep. A feat in and of itself, given the circumstances. My younger brother and sister fought on and off for 7 hours. My older brother pulled out my dad's VHS recorder, the size and weight of a 36-inch tube TV. He hefted it upon his shoulder and pressed the red record button, quietly documenting everything. The lens moved from one face to the next, my sister with her eyes closed and mouth slightly ajar, the younger 2 arguing over a section of seating that both claimed ownership of, my mom telling my dad, Judas Priest, slow down, while pressing an imaginary brake with her foot and covering her eyes, my dad calling back that he was about to pull the van over if he had to. I was right next to my silently filming brother, and when he wielded the telescopic lens my way, I sat staring at him, my mouth firmly closed. I knew it was futile to fight this. Also, resistance only created undesirable footage. Me squeaking at him to stop it, cut it out. Reaching toward him to turn it off, which only resulted in an extreme close-up of my nostril and mouthful of braces. So I sat in this waiting game, a purgatory procedure of car trips. Mine was a grimacing silence, his was a smiling silence. As he captured a smiling silence, which eventually turned into silent laughter, his shoulders shaking as he captured my essence, which in this instance was a huge red zit in full bloom on my forehead. 3 minutes of my zit on 15x, and then my parents mercifully, though unwittingly, diverted the filmmaker with new material. It was time to say the Rosary. Call and response Rosary was usually pulled out by my dad when we were too loud, or by my mom when her imaginary brake pedal was not working. Its intended purpose was to instill peace through prayerful connection with our Blessed Mother and her Son Jesus. If the goal was quiet rather than peace, this was achieved as one by one we dropped off to sleep like Dorothy and her cohort weaving through a field of poppies. My older brother continued filming, as my dad led with, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee, blessed art thou among women, blessed is thy womb. And we would answer meditatively, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us in My mother was always the first to fall asleep, but she fought it, and my brother filmed on. By the second decade, she was nodding, and my brother was zooming in. Like a child fighting fatigue, protesting while yawning, my mother would pray herself to sleep. She would wake later with a start, long after the Rosary had drugged us all. Out of sleep, she'd burst, Holy Mary! And then she would look around and see that the Rosary was long over. My brother filmed everything. It was around this time that we arrived. There was a large sign reading, Welcome to Steubenville. The van drove slowly now through rolling green hills. I scanned for sign of a pool. My older sister, still leaning against the window, had one eye open, then 2. Her car sickness overrode any prior doubts, but only temporarily. Where are we? The filmmaker spoke for the first time. The van came to a stop, and we were somewhere. Resort guests milled around the green hills. People in habits, people with collars, nuns and priests. Children tossed a ball and played with them. Picnic tables were set up with food and games. Large wooden kneelers were set at different places along the grass. Next to the kneelers, a privacy screen, and next to the privacy screen, a chair which held the priest. The kneelers were occupied by adults leaning toward the priest repentantly. It was open-air confession set up among makeshift volleyball games. Where are we? My sister was fully awake now, and she was looking alarmed as though even her suspicions had not prepared her. My mother was already climbing out of the car, joyful and eager to join the festivities and go be with her people. My sister did not move. She stayed in the van, and the rest of us did too initially, feeling that this resort was not as advertised. But curiosity and the need to play won over, and I climbed out of the van. My older sister refused. She refused as other resort guests came to greet us. She refused as my mother smiled and motioned for her to join us. She sat in the van, and I do believe that if it weren't for the eventual hunger and thirst, she would have remained there. Where were we? It took several years and the invention of the internet before I could piece together an answer to this question that was not an opinion or an affirmation of how wonderful it was. We were on the campus of the University of Steubenville, attending what I believe was called Holy Family Camp. Our family was not a candidate of this title. There were families with a dozen children, girls wearing long skirts, homeschooled kids before homeschooling was hip, and when it was implemented, only to protect one's children from encountering kids like us. There was indeed a pool, and when I found it, I ran to it. I had worn my suit under my clothes the entire car ride in order to be ready for this moment. I stripped off my jams, shirt, and jelly shoes and fast walked to the diving board. A shrill whistle stopped me and a lifeguard approached. It was explained to me that all swimmers had to wear modest attire. My suit was a two-piece, and though the pieces met in the middle, it did not pass code. I pulled the shirt over my suit and proceeded. There were horses. We did a family horseback ride, and my older sister got what we called the farting horse. As her mare passed continual gas, stopping only to make rich deposits to the soil. There was a campfire every night. This followed Holy Eucharistic Adoration, which took place in a barn, lasted an hour, and was done in silence. The campfire was where the night ended with s'mores, which accompanied the Rosary. Families stayed in dormitories with males in one large bunk room and females in another large bunk room. My sisters, mother, and I climbed in each night with the many other females. Industrial metal fans rotated, circulating warm air upon 40 modestly attired bodies. Days began with Mass and were followed by work. We painted the dorms. I was given a brush, sometimes a roller, sometimes a dust rag. We repaired the facilities and prepared them for the next round of students who would arrive in September. Before the internet was invented, and in the absence of obtaining facts, I called the camp the work camp. We slept soundly each night because a day of physical labor, followed by Eucharistic adoration, followed by 5 decades of the Rosary, does not leave room for insomnia. Even the car ride home had what my parents were always trying to get: peace, or at least quiet. Being around kids who were so good all the time, who delighted in doing as their parents asked, who sang while they painted and shared without being asked to, and never made fun of their siblings or anyone else, had humbled us, but only slightly. An hour on the road, my brother, who had not touched the VHS recorder all week because labor, broke the quiet. It was weird, he said. No one answered. My parents did not even try to say the Rosary. Even they had hit capacity for their favorite prayer. A year later, when spring break was approaching, my cousin mentioned that she and her family were driving down south to the ocean. They'd be staying somewhere called Hilton Head. I'd never seen the ocean, but immediately pictured open-air confession set up among sand dunes. I did not know how to warn her that Hilton Head would not be what she was expecting. That their bunk room would have 40 other females and they'd be painting and cleaning every day. When they returned from their week at the ocean, I made myself available to console her. How did it go? I asked, with a knowing yet sympathetic demeanor. Awesome, she enthused. She described a hotel with balcony that overlooked a beach, a pool with a big slide, lazy mornings, and large meals with just her family. I knew she was in denial and leaving out all the other parts. I let it be. Sometimes the shock of our first vacation experience can take some time to process, and I understood that she may not yet be ready to integrate what she thought was going to be taking place and what actually did take place. To this day, when I learn that a friend or family or newly married couple plan to go to a resort and spend a week there, I hold the urge to warn them or give them a heads up and tell them to bring a giant t-shirt to wear over their bathing suit. There has not yet been one time when this advice has been helpful. To this day, if work camp is mentioned in my family, my mother still glows, which only shows that you can be in the same family and not be on the same vacation together. I wish I could say that this was a one-time thing, but it was only the beginning. The Holy Family Camp in Ohio was followed by many other trips that do not readily fit into the term vacation. Upon graduation from college, my older sister was gifted with a trip to Italy. Peeling back at that word, chipping at the paint a bit, revealed that this was a religious pilgrimage to a campsite 40 minutes from Rome, led by a group called the Consecrated Virgins of Christ. That is another story for another time.